a young girl was molested repeatedly from her dad, and then finally her mom reported to dad, and he went to prison and got divorced, and then that dad was gone, and he was emotionally unavailable and never showed up again. The likelihood of that girl growing up to be a woman who's attracted to men who are abusive and emotionally unavailable is pretty dang high. Come, let me teach you how you can have the hot wife, the fancy car, the big house, and the fat bank account. I'll show you how.
I'm about to blow. I'm Tupac with the nouns and Biggie with the flow. Big boy with the style and Andre with the fro.
Christopher, welcome to the show. Your work is really centered around true wealth. How do you define that, and how did this journey begin for you?
It's been a long one. I first graduated high school and started a business right out of high school and grew that for 12 years and did very well with that. But around that time went through a major divorce. That's my wolf pup in the back. That brought me to a dark place, a very dark and heavy and inward place. And since then, there's been a lot more experiences, but it just took me deeper and deeper and deeper to the place of what are we all really looking for? And at the end of the day, it's peace, it's love, it's joy, it's freedom, right? And we tend to think that what we want is a relationship, we want money, we want cars, we want houses. Those are all nice things, but how do you feel every single day? And what is your nervous system wired for and programmed for? There's a concept that was introduced by Gay Hendricks called upper limits, which is essentially how good can you stand life before you do something subconsciously to sabotage it. And so over the years, I've made a lot of money. I've had all the material things. I've done all the fun stuff. I've had plenty of great sex. I've dated and married the hot chicks. I've done all those things. And just like many others who have achieved and experienced those things, there comes a place where you go, those are bonuses. Those are nice. Those are beautiful. Nothing wrong with them. But there's something else deeper. And it includes, for me, 4 primary areas. How's my health? Because without health, you got nothing. How's my relationships? And that's not just relationships with people. That's relationships with everything, with source, with self, with nature. How's my relationship with money? How's my relationship with my kids? How's my relationship with all things? And then finances, because in today's world, that's hunting. As men in primal cultures, our primary nature is to provide and protect. Yeah. Well, hunting and building a teepee might have been the thing back in the day. Today, we need to be able to, our hunting is money, right? That's how we put meat on the table. And so the final piece would be spirituality, because if there's not a deeper sense of meaning and purpose and inspiration mixed in with all that, then, and you're just keeping up with the Joneses or building from programs that were formulated from childhood, from different conversations you had with friends that didn't know anything, or Disney shows that maybe made you think you meet the one and live happily ever after. I'm a little bit sick today, so a little rough looking and a little rough sounding, but we're here to get it done anyway. But anyway, yeah, like true wealth is like, how do we continually improve and grow and thrive in all 4 of those areas? And how do we create a deep sense of fulfillment and purpose and joy and peace and freedom inside that isn't contingent upon any of those things? And that we then create from that place, rather than from a place of compensation or proving or earning or validation or any of those things.
I love that. Yeah, your message is like, it's super powerful. I know one of the things you said is like, on your deathbed, you'll know if you lived for what truly matters. How did this kind of realization shape your own life and your mission that you're trying to accomplish right now?
I mean, there's plenty of ways that's been said, like don't die with your song unsung or your dance undanced. Studying great masters, what they all kind of come to is that the ultimate goal of ascetics and rishis and masters is essentially that how I express myself, how you perceive me is exactly how I am.
Love that.
Right? That's like, it's actually that simple. That however the fuck I am, that's how I am.
Yep.
And that's exactly how you experience me. That there's no pretense, there's no persona, there's no pretend, there's no posturing or positioning. It's just here I am, there you are, here we are. And exactly as I am, as I feel, one of the definitions of integrity is to be aligned with one's true nature. And integrity is one of the critical pieces of anything that's sustainable. Like a couple of interesting angles on what it takes to be successful. If there were two things, I boiled it down to be unconditional love and impeccable integrity. And you might say, well, those are weird things. Integrity, I think people could get. But unconditional love, what does that have to do with success? Well, dollars follow value as a principle of financial success. If you think, how do I get money? How do I get money? How do I get money? You don't actually usually get money. If you think, what's the most value that I could add to people's lives in the world? That actually comes from a place of love, right? And the more I love myself, the more I care about others. The more I care about others, I do business in a way that's caring. And the more integrity I have in that, the more sustainable that success is. So the bigger I love myself and life and others, the more likely I am to be lucky and successful and thrive in all things. And then the more integrous I am, the more that thriving sustains, because a lack of integrity is probably the number one thing that undermines any success that's ever been had, including my own. Many times I reached the top, got arrogant, got cocky, got insensitive and uncaring, and then life threw some lessons at me. And so, yeah, that's kind of the process.
Yeah, no, I love that perspective, because I mean, it's kind of like what the Bible talks about how Jesus was. Jesus kind of showed up and he was nothing but love. He loved everything and everyone and all of that. And as long as you kind of live your life through Jesus, kind of how I look at it is like everything that you need is going to get put into your life one way or another. But it all does start with being like heart centered and focusing on like, how can I be of service of someone instead of just how can I sell this person?
Yes. And then if we combine that with, so a principle, I love studying principles. There's strategies, there's techniques, there's principles. Strategies vary according, one hunting strategy works in the summer, but not in the winter, right? Fixing and flipping houses in a certain market works, but it doesn't work in a different market, right? So strategies work contingent upon certain things, but there's principles beneath those that are always true and always work, right? So one guy might launch here's my fix and flip real estate program, and it works great during a certain real estate market and then not so much in another one. But what's a principle that we could rely on in that market or anything else? It'd be buy low, sell high, right? Anything that I buy for this for one amount and sell for a higher amount, I'm going to make some money on. And so if we take, so principle is true regardless of season, regardless of timing, regardless of supply and demand, regardless of anything, a principle always stands true. And so if we look at, whether you are an atheist, a Christian, anything, the atheist is a little harder to sell on this, but their logic and reason doesn't make any sense. How did you just come out of nothing? How was everything created out of nothing with nobody or no entity or being or wisdom having done that? that don't make a lot of sense. But the principle being is like begats like. That was taught in the scriptures.
Yep.
So a wolf creates a wolf, a dog creates a dog, a cat creates a cat, a peach creates peaches that have peach pits that create peach trees that create peaches with peach pits that create peach trees, right? And so no matter what it is, like begats like. The same thing comes out of that. Well, we were certainly created, or we wouldn't exist. We couldn't be having this conversation. We wouldn't be aware that we exist and have this conversation if we weren't created.
Yep.
So all that we see, all that we perceive, and a million to infinitely more than that that we can't perceive exists and was created. But in that, we are creators. Those trees outside my window are creators. This wolf pup is a creator. You're a creator. I'm a creator. Because like begats like. We were created, therefore we are creators.
Yep.
And thus, to be in integrity with our true nature, we must create in one form or another. One person that might be a nun, another person that might be being a Hindu monk up in a cave meditating. He's creating a frequency for the higher good of humanity and the planet. It might be a preacher or pastor that is creating community and principled gatherings to assist others to come to God. However you want to look at it, everyone's creating either consciously or unconsciously, and we must be creating to be in integrity with our highest nature, and we must be ever growing and improving. Otherwise, why be here? Right? It's like that's part of the purpose is to ever grow and improve. So a lot of what we do, me and the men that work with me, is we're constantly looking at what wants to be expressed through me. You know, what is my purpose? Why am I here?
Huge.
What does God want me to, how can I assist his plan? How can I assist the particular gifts that he gave me? How can I utilize those to better bless others? And for me, that has to be both in this 3D world as well as what you brought up is if on my deathbed, all I did was help people have nice cars and money and fancy things, but they die spiritually broke or mentally, emotionally unfulfilled, I didn't do any good. However, if I help them be aligned with passion and purpose and zone of genius, and to be of highest service, aligned with the particular gifts they were given in a way that was most fulfilling for them and that blessed others' lives in the world in the greatest ways possible, then they truly die rich with things that they can take with them. Most of the stuff we can't. All these computers and cars and houses and money and bank accounts and crypto and even a lot of the relationships, maybe they probably last after, right? But we're not necessarily taking them with us. At the end of the day, what we take with us is our character. We take with us our soul evolution, our soul growth, our soul frequency.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it kind of ties back to all that. How do we create the most enjoyable existence here in the most aligned way while continually evolving and growing and expanding, while creating an alignment with who we are and why we're here in such a way that we leave here richer on a soul level, on a spirit level, on a godly level than we came here, and that we left everything we touched better than when we got here.
I love that. No, that's super powerful. That's actually my wife and I sat down and we like really started to think about like what are our family core values? Where are we going? And one of them was just be intentional and leave people better than you found them, because that's huge.
Yeah.
Especially having a purpose is huge. I feel like there's a huge connection between people that are depressed and just
Yeah.
kind of coasting through life and not having that purpose.
Yeah.
And once you find that purpose, it does put this fire inside of you that
Yes.
just pushes you through all the negative shit and all the bad stuff that's kind of happening in your life and allows you to see the possibility in everything.
Yes. And
I know.
I love I love making as many things in life a ceremony as possible and a learning experience, right? So if my
That's huge.
dog misbehaves and does something that pisses me off, and I notice something well up in me that wants to get violent, that's a learning lesson for me, right? If I'm at the grocery store and someone left their cart in the parking spot, why not just push that in while I'm there and leave even that better than when I got there, right? How do I focus on every chance I get to add value, even if it's only worth a penny, right? Like they're going to pay someone to go out and gather that cart up and bring it in. I'm walking past there anyway. Why not just bring it in? Or when I'm done using the cart, why not bring it in? Right? Make it so that everything I do is leaving something better, and everything that happens in my life is a learning lesson. So I was extensively abused physically, mentally, emotionally in my childhood. So when I bring up the rage that like for instance, I have a very nice truck. I had this dog in that truck. This dog is still a pup. She's a brilliant, amazing dog. She chewed on my leather seats
Oh no.
like 2 weeks ago. That pissed me off pretty good. I had the impulse to smack the shit out of her, but I observed, I breathed, I said, look at this. No, don't do that. And they're accustomed to growling. They're accustomed to a little nip like, hey, no, like how would her dad or mom treat her? It wouldn't be beating the crap out of her, but a growl, a stern, firm voice, and some clear communication, and then maybe moving her to the back of the truck and realizing, oh, she got anxious. She's a pack animal. She's accustomed. She sees me as her leader. I'm the alpha leader. And I left her too long in the truck as a pup, knowing. So what all can I learn from this? And how can I adjust differently so that, one, I can contain and master that anger response, that abuse response, that you were abused, hurt people.
Yeah.
How can I observe that and master it, own it, and be honest about it? Because that's part of this authenticity thing. Like, we don't just sit and pretend anything. It's like, this arose, but I saw it. Or I judge you, but I know it's my judgment, right? It's not about you. But turning all those things into learning lessons, every single thing.
No, that's huge. I know I have a puppy as well. I also have a 2-year-old. So I had a similar upbringing as you where my stepdad was very abusive and
Uh-huh.
everything there. So yeah, there's always times where you're just feeling this rage and you really
Yeah.
need to just take a step back. I'll tell my wife, I'm like, yo, you need to handle this situation for a second because I need to walk outside because those emotions are coming up.
Yeah, one of my greatest mastery lessons was actually, so I had an amazing wife. We were married for 19 years, and for the first 10, it was phenomenal and just got better. We learned and grew and were committed to similar things. And then she got chronically ill
Oh
and
no.
was chronically ill for more than a decade. And in that, she got almost no sleep. She was in immense over the top pain day and night, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And over time, her mental health broke down. And it got to the point that every single day, whether it was her threatening suicide or her abusing me or the kids or different things, this beautiful, amazing soul went through a lot, got stuck in a downward spiral, and wreaked havoc for a long time. And it was one of my greatest teachers. It was one of the hardest things I've ever gone through. But it was also one of my greatest teachers around self-mastery. And I just learned, no matter what she does, no matter how she shows up, if I have a huge response that is attacking, blaming, criticizing, defending, reacting, blowing up on any form, it don't work. It furthers the problem regardless of who started it or how. This is an opportunity for self-mastery. And so it took me years of committing and recommitting to, anytime I notice a reaction, that my goal became, I respond, I don't react. Because a
It's huge.
reaction is like, the doctor hits the hammer on your knee and your knee just
You just
jerks
kick it in the
out,
face
right?
on it, looks
That's
good.
a knee-jerk reaction. But if I
Yeah.
was conditioned to have these violent or intense or explosive reactions, that's something I came to master. And it took a lot, because Michael Singer's one of my greatest teachers, and one of probably my favorite quote from Michael Singer is, "The head is where the soul goes to hide from the heart." So let me go slower with that. The head, so my brain, my thoughts, is where my awareness jumps to when something outside of me happens that creates a huge reaction based on my traumas, my stories, my insecurities, my doubts, my fears. When something big happens and there's a big emotional reaction, I'm going to jump up here and my fight or flight survival mechanisms are going to kick in, where I'm either going to yell, physically do something, or run away. And those are great survival mechanisms in the wild, but not so much when you're trying to be a civil, loving, safe husband, father, human being. We don't actually deal with those situations hardly at all, most of us. There's people in ghettos and rough places in the world that are dealing with that, with gang violence or cartels or whatever. For us, most of the time, we're not dealing with that. But we still have the reactions. And so one of the biggest things, because when it comes to providing and protecting, what are we protecting? So there's one, like, protect from external threats. What about protecting from my anger? What about protecting from my reactions? What about protecting from any toxic patterns that I have? Name calling, blame, attack, there's a whole bunch of things that are considered normal. Well, you did this, so of course I'm reacting that way. No, there's nothing they could, if you're a solid, sovereign, safe man, you have solid boundaries. You have clear communication. You have things that you won't tolerate. But never, ever, ever would a sovereign, integrated, embodied man react in any type of toxic or abusive way. Therefore, anything that does arise must be addressed and mastered, right? And so it took me a long time, and I still haven't 100% perfected it. But almost always, I got to the ability to where no matter what happened or how it was delivered, I was able to recognize that my soul had gone to my head, that I was in a fight or flight response, communicate, hey, I'm not in a good place. I am taking space. I'm not abandoning. I need to go breathe. I need to go take space. I'll be back when I can come from the heart. And then it got to the point at first it would take me hours to get back there. Got to the point that it could be minutes or some oftentimes seconds.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a worthy cause for all of us to practice and dedicate and commit to mastering those types of things as well.
Yeah, no, that's huge. I know it's something that I struggle with as well, that I've overcame a lot of it. But I mean, when you're ingrained with that growing up,
Yeah.
like that's one of the hardest things, especially
Right.
from 2 to 6 years old.
Right.
Like that's just shaping who you are as a person. And it takes a lot of dedication. It takes a lot
Yeah.
of resilience and courage and discipline. And I know that's one thing you emphasize a lot as the backbone of being a true leader, whether that's a leader in your business, your relationship, your life with your kids, all of that. So, in a world that often challenges traditional masculinity, like what does it mean to be a strong, conscious man today?
I mean, one of the most important things is staying in the present moment. That's probably one of the first foundational things, because in that fight or flight response, we typically jump to the future or the past.
Yep.
Right. And in the past, a lot of the bad things happened, and that's what's initiating the response or reaction. And if we tie in the work of Carl Jung, he said, until the unconscious is made conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. Right? This is a big deal. This means that consciously, talking to you. I don't know you much, but I'm imagining consciously you're like, I want to be the best man that I can be, best husband, best father. I want to do honest business. I want to be a good man. I want to be right with God. Consciously, those are all things. I want to be healthy. I want to, all the things. But subconsciously, why are we having these unhealthy reactions? Because it's stored in the body. So then you study the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he says the body is the subconscious mind. So we think that all of it's just stored in memories. It's actually stored in the cells all the way throughout our body. So if you mix those two from Carl Jung's work, saying until the unconscious is made conscious, because unconscious and subconscious are the same thing. It's just below what we're aware of.
Yep.
In your conscious mind, you'd think, okay, I choose and commit to responding to my wife and child or children in a healthy, loving, safe, integrous, good way, right? In a healthy, masculine way. That's almost any decent man who has that intention, that's his conscious choice. But unconsciously stored in our body is grief and pain and toxicity and burdens of trauma at varying levels. And so at the end of the day, we've got to love the unloved places, somatically transmute, and I'll dissect those words a little bit. Somatically transmute the traumas. And if you look at all core wounds, there's the primary core wounds are abandonment, rejection, betrayal, abuse, neglect, things like this. And anything that was, so Gabor Mate, probably the world's foremost expert on trauma, he says, trauma is anything that was too much, too fast, too soon.
Yep.
And that could be anything, even a perceived positive thing. For instance, I was raised early on in the Mormon or LDS culture. And in that culture, they save themselves for marriage. And then most of them go on a mission when they reach the age of 18 or 19 years old, around 19 years old. And so if they kept themselves, they had no sex, they went through all their teens with the willpower to not have that sex, they go out on a 2-year mission and serve. Many times they come home from that and they get married very rapidly. To the first decent girl that gives them attention and is interested, because part of that's just hormones. Like, I've waited a long time to have sex. I really, really want to have sex. Let me get married as fast as I can so I can have sex. Well, that's not a great foundation for a marriage start, for one. And then for two, if they've been craving and resisting that for a long time, they finally get it, they have a great time, they could immediately form what Hinduism and Eastern philosophy calls samskaras, where it's based on cravings and aversions. And for me, I've studied and studied and studied everything, shamanism, Eastern philosophy, Christianity. I don't tend to be the guy that just sticks to one. I'm the guy that goes, okay, how are all of these teachings overlaying each other, and how can I find the shared truths within them? Instead of looking at how they're wrong, I look at what parts of that people teach that feels like fear and guilt and shame and punishment and elitism. I want to be aware of those things, but more so I look for the shared truths. I love gathering truth from everywhere I can get it from. But in that, samskaras, and it boils down to cravings and aversions. And if you looked at that through Christian teachings, they wouldn't use those words, but it's like anything that you crave is a master over you.
Yeah.
If you're craving a drug, an alcohol, a sex, a relationship, money, anything that's feeling empty and void that I think I need to get to be okay, is actually keeping me from health, keeping me from God, feeling connected with God, keeping me from being in a place of power. And anything that I avert meaning resist. I'm not okay with that. I can't be okay with that. If that happens, I'm going to lose my shit. Right? So if we go back to Christ's teachings, he talked about build upon the rock. Do not build on a sandy foundation.
Yep.
So as I pick that apart, I'm going, what does that mean? It means anything that I build my safety, my well-being, my self-worth, that's outside of me that could be taken away. Because like God's most amazing people, like Job, they went through a lot of stuff. Like that was part of the purification and initiation process, was going through really hard stuff and actually having that stuff make them better men, not worse. Like that's the difference of a man or a woman. Is it's not that you didn't go through stuff, it's that stuff didn't make you a demon. That stuff didn't make you a cynical, mean, nasty with your person with your heart cut off that's just out to hurt others, right?
Yeah.
That it refined you, it humbled you, it improved you. That no matter what, when you got blessings, you use them well. When you got challenges, it refined you and made you a better person. That's the whole thing, right? So let me see if I can find my train of thought, because it's a worthy one. The sandy foundation. So essentially, if that wife I was talking about, we ended up divorced after 19 years. It was a really hard time. It was a really hard time for 8 years prior to that. And it was a really hard time for about 6 months after the divorce. And it was all like some of the greatest blessings of my life, some of the greatest refinements of my life. And, but if we tie it back to this principle of don't build on a sandy foundation, what I've extracted, like I said, is anything outside of me. So if my money goes away, do I feel like God betrayed me? If my relationship falls apart, do I feel like I'm being punished by God? If a loved one dies, do I let that send me in a downward spiral and turn to drugs and alcohol and depravity and destroy my life? Or do I build upon a rock in every way, and it ties to sovereignty? How do I have a relationship with myself, with God, and life that is solid regardless of the seasons that I go through? There's been many up times and many down times. Many times when I was thriving in every way, and many times when I was struggling in every way.
Yeah.
How do I use all of those to benefit me? When everything's better than I can imagine, can I reacclimate my nervous system and my psyche to handle that much goodness? And when everything's down, can I utilize that to make me stronger, more humble, and to learn the things that would help me create it to be different, and to not have to repeat those lessons?
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I love that. Because like my wife, she studied shamanism for a year, and that's actually what she does for her work. So when you talk about like trauma is stored in the body, like
Yeah.
that's 100% true. A
Yeah.
lot of the people that come to her, a lot of the women that come to her, they have struggled with like sexual abuse and
Yep.
stuff like that when they were younger and even into adulthood.
Yep.
And anytime they go to have sex, it's just very painful
Yep.
for them.
Yep.
And she's able to kind of go in there, figure out where those energy blocks are, extract those.
Yep.
And then I'd say 95% of the people that she worked with, as long as they keep an open mind and they're really open to the work that she's doing, have a complete change within that one session.
Yes.
And it's huge, man. I don't think a lot of people realize like how these little things that happen, even when you were a child that you don't even remember, are still affecting the way that you show up in any room. They're affecting the way on like what you believe in how you believe in yourself, and like all of these things. I kind of want to transition over to the Warrior 44 challenge, because it's built around stillness and self-discovery. Why do you believe men need this space before they can actually build real success?
God doesn't dwell in unholy temples, and cleanliness is next to godliness. And our external world is a reflection of our internal world.
Yeah.
And many years ago, close to 20 years ago, I was in a Vipassana meditation. So I had watched a documentary where they went to a max security prison in India where they had murderers and rapists primarily in there. And anytime someone got out, they had a 95% return rate to that prison. They spent their time, nothing changed, they got out, did it again, came back in 95% of the time.
Wow.
They introduced this particular meditation style where it's a 10-day silent meditation retreat. And they said, you don't have to do this, but if you'd like to, you can. And so a bunch of the inmates did it. And I don't know if you've ever, I used to do work in prisons. I'd go in and do voluntary work to help people heal. And it ties back to this somatic release thing I was mentioning earlier that ties to what your wife was saying and ties to, or what you were saying about your wife. And it ties to what Carl Jung was saying. So when he says, until the unconscious is made conscious, it will rule your life and you'll call it fate. So say a young girl was molested repeatedly from her dad, and then finally her mom reported to dad, and he went to prison and got divorced, and then, that dad was gone, and he was emotionally unavailable and never showed up again. The likelihood of that girl growing up to be a woman who's attracted to men who are abusive and emotionally unavailable is pretty dang high, almost guaranteed, unless she finds a way to somatically release. And likely she made up stories and programs that say you can't trust men, all they want is sex, men are mean, they're always looking for something, they're going to try to get in your pants, and they're going to use you, they're going to abuse you, and screw men, or whatever she made up.
Yep.
Until she can sort through, and it's not just in the head. It's pretty easy to see if we're not traumatized. Oh, there's good men and there's not so good men. There's good women and women that are hurting, and there's people that are hurting others, and there's people that are not. But when we are still carrying those wounds, we're actually drawn to the same thing. It's actually the toxic stuff. If that's what was familiar, it actually subconsciously feels more safe. Like they'll actually repel a good man, or vice versa. I've repelled good women because it didn't feel familiar, safe and familiar. So now if we go back though, so somatic release means it must be released ideally through sound and or energy stuff like your wife's doing, and or body gestures. So often like you could conjure up the trauma, channel it into a workout, channel it into a boxing bag, channel it into where there's sound and physical intensity matching what's being felt on the inside that's helping move it through rather than just intellectually processing it. Oftentimes Western therapy, just sitting and talking on a couch, can make you worse.
Oh, dude. 100%. 100%.
Than if you find a way to actually remove it out. So transmutation is more like, can I allow this to come back up? Can I create a safe place? Like they say, your greatest treasure lies in the cave you most fear to enter. Well, when I was doing some deep work with shamanism, I received this powerful inspiration that said, yes, this is true, but don't enter that cave without the light of divinity.
Yeah.
Right? And so I'll go into those dark places and find those deep wounds, but I'll pray and call for support and assistance and presence to assist me as I navigate those deep, dark waters, so that there's a presence of love and healing as I move through those. So most people tend to ignore those things, try to have a positive attitude, and they think that if they just have a positive attitude and work hard, that'll be enough. And that was my approach for the first decade of my 20s up into my late 20s, is just work hard, have a good attitude, be a good person. And that's a good place to start. But you end up finding, oh, I actually need to go in and clear out some of this trauma and this stuff that's stored in my body and my being.
Yep. And then for those of you listening, like a really good book is The Body Keeps the Score.
Yes.
It's a deep book. It's a really, I'm dyslexic, so it's a hard read for
Mm-hmm.
me. But if you can get the audiobook on Audible or anything there,
Yeah.
it's a really good book to really
Yes.
show you how trauma is stored in your body and how to start releasing that.
Yes. And then if you want to understand transmutation more, Michael Singer's book, Living Untethered,
Living Untethered.
does an amazing job of helping understand how, through simple meditation, which reminds me, I didn't actually answer your question on the Warrior 44 and stillness. I started to say God don't dwell in unholy temples. So Living Untethered helps you learn how to transmute just through stillness. You're sitting here in stillness, and as you first start to meditate, it's miserable. You start to have these body aches, you get impatient, you feels like nothing's happening. It's actually quite miserable because all the chaos that's been going on inside is actually loud and amplified, and you don't feel benefits, you don't feel peace in the beginning. It actually feels worse. And so, and then I didn't finish my story about this India prison. So I watched that documentary where they actually put the prison completely out of business by having these guys do this 10-day silent meditation retreat together. And the men that had killed people actually went and became the financial providers for the women and children of the men they had killed for the rest of their lives. So complete turnarounds by simply going into stillness. But when you first go into that stillness, it's more maddening. It's like all this stuff you've been avoiding that's in that subconscious that is absolute chaos. It's very hard to face and be with. And so then after watching that documentary, I decided I didn't even think I needed it. I'm like, I had a rough childhood, but I'm fine. Positive attitude, work hard, we're good. Well, I went, and about 3 days in, I was about ready to, I literally was thinking, I want to kill all these people. I hate this. This is stupid. It's a waste of time. If I had a gun, I think I'd just start shooting people. That's how I was feeling. Weird, right? I'm a pretty decent, normal guy. Never had those types of urges to hurt people. I've always been a kind, loving guy. But sitting with my own self, because you take a vow of silence, you agree, you hand over your keys and your phone and all your stuff. And for 10 days, you meditate from like 5 in the morning till like 9 at night with little breaks in between. And then you sleep at night and you meditate all day for 10 days straight. And about 3 days in, I realized that my mind was a very primal beast, that I hadn't even come close to tapping my potential, because that beast, I was a slave to it. I wasn't its master. It was mine. And that it roamed and wandered and created chaos at will, randomly, all day, every day. And that it was driving me nuts to sit there and witness how chaotic and crazy it really was. And then about towards the end of that third day, I ended up having one of the greatest spiritual experiences of my life when I finally got to stillness. And then to tie that back to what I was saying, why stillness is so important, and how God don't dwell in unholy temples, it's because typically God's not like, listen, you little shit, do what I said. He's like, hey, man, you get a better result if you do this. Hey, I wouldn't advise that, right? But you can't hear that when there's a whole crowd in here of chaos just raging about. You can't hear it. And so when you get still and you start to develop the mastery of that massive unharnessed potential, and you say, look, we're all going to become very quiet. And in this place of quietness, we're going to find that peace, that love, that joy, that freedom that we think we'll have when all these material things happen, when the relationships at that place and the health's at that place and the money's at that place, and we think we're going to have this peace, love, and joy and freedom. And so we get up every day and we drive from this surface level perspective towards those things. But when it comes to manifestation, attraction, and creation, it's actually be, do, have, not do, have, be. We think that if I work really hard, get these things, then I'll be happy, peaceful, free, joyous, loving. That's not how it works. When we are happy, peaceful, free, joyous, loving, things effortlessly flow, like you said earlier, about Jesus, right? And so, but until we get to that stillness, we can't receive inspiration. And he who is not being led and guided through inspiration constantly is creating from those samskaras I'm talking about. He's creating from craving and aversion. It's like, oh, I don't want to not feed my family. I'm really stressed. If I don't make enough money, we're not going to survive. We're going to starve and we're going to be on the streets. And when you're creating from that place, like begats like. We go back to that conversation. Well, if I'm in scarcity, creating from scarcity, I will get more scarcity. It takes me decades to figure out how to create abundance when I'm in scarcity. If I can crack the code by mastering my own mind to say, when I say, hey, it's quiet time, and it says, okay, oh, nice, I like quiet time, instead of like, no, it's like a whole bunch of unruly children in there. But when we get them to where they're actually disciplined and we say, hey, it's playtime or it's work time or it's quiet time, they're just like, okay. And so then we go to that stillness and we have that peace, that love, that joy, all those states of being we believe we'll have when those external things come, which they won't. Whatever you're addicted to, whatever you're accustomed to, you're addicted to. Yep. So if I'm accustomed to stress and anxiety and survival and scarcity, getting those things won't make me feel safer. That's why you can have a billionaire that's still worried that he's not going to be okay. He's not going to be safe because he hasn't addressed what drove those behaviors that had him go get that stuff. And so even he was built on, even his wealth, financial wealth isn't true wealth. It was built on a sandy foundation. He still don't have peace. He has plenty of money that he could have peace, but he don't realize that that's not the source of peace. It's all an inside job. Right.
So then,
yeah, go ahead.
For those that are kind of like stuck in scarcity, do you have any like frameworks, methodologies, anything like that beyond, or is it just like, hey, you need to start meditating, you need to get still, you need to move through this?
We could go on for days and I can tell you 3 decades of stuff that I've studied, and we could go down 100 rabbit holes, but and everyone wants to avoid meditation. No one wants to sit and face their inner demons and their unruly children and their wounded selves and their inner demons. No one wants to. That's the last thing people want to do. Yeah. There's even a story that tells about pre-earth, and they're like some angels and God. He's like, well, where will we hide this ultimate truth? This ultimate power. And they're like, hide it at the bottom of the deepest ocean. No, they'll find it there. Hide it at the top of the highest mountain. No, they'll find it there. I know. Hide it inside them. It's the last place they'll look. Yeah, let's do that. Right? It's like everyone wants to, and it's bad for me from a business sense because no one wants to do this kind of work. You know, it'd be way easier for me to make money if I said, hey, you could have it all. Come, let me teach you how you can have the hot wife, the fancy car, the big house, and the fat bank account. I'll show you how. That sells way easier than me saying, sit your ass down and do the real work. Sit your ass down and face your inner demons, however long it takes, and you're probably going to plant that garden and weed that garden and cultivate that garden for a long, long time before you're going to see results. No one wants to hear that. Yeah. They want to go to the doctor, get the magic pill that makes them skinny. They want to go to the drug that makes them feel good. They want to get the relationship because that's going to do it. It's always all the external things that everyone's turning to. But the holy grail of everything I've discovered, you master this one thing. Like that's what the whole reason why the Warrior 44. If I could take 30 years worth of exploring the edges of of psyche and psychology and theology and all the things, human performance and influence and all the things. There's a quote that says, you could conquer the entire world and you have accomplished less than the man who's conquered himself, right? Like if you simply find the will, and part of it is you have to work up slow. Like when I first started meditating, a 15-minute meditation was miserable. A 20 or 30, oh my gosh, I hate this. Now, a few minutes in, I feel so dang good, I don't want to leave. And then an hour in, I'm like, oh man, it's just getting better and better and better. I don't want to leave. Hour and a half. Sometimes I'll do 3 hour. I've done a multiple of these 10-day meditation retreats. I've done a dark retreat where I sat and fasted in a dark, completely 100% dark room by myself, 5 days, meditating almost all the time, day and night. And it becomes this experience once you start to clean out that temple. Because I said, God don't dwell in unholy temples or unholy places. This is the thing. This is the foundation, is when I can become still, I can actually hear and cultivate that relationship.
Yeah.
And when I cultivate that relationship, I'll find there's nothing. When I've had the millions of dollars, I've had the hot wife, lots of epic sex, thriving in every way that the world thinks is amazing, still empty, still not fulfilled, still not deeply inspired. That there's nothing outside of me that can create what happens inside of me when I'm in that stillness and that peace and that coherence and communion with God.
Yeah.
And I only find that through the stillness. So I took the work of Carl Jung around, he identified 4 masculine archetypes, he called them. He called it the warrior, the lover, the magician, and the king. Well, I expanded on that because in my meditations, I received a lot of deep inspiration around that in order to embody those archetypes, you had to be initiated into them. And so there's a bunch of things that can initiate one into warriorhood. And warriorhood isn't soldier. It doesn't mean it's more like peaceful warrior. It's like mastery over mind and self and your impulses, your cravings, your aversions, and being able to direct where your awareness or your mind places its focus.
Yeah.
And so the first step is being able to direct through meditation techniques that when my mind wants to wander to all these places and chase all these shiny objects and operate from a survival fight or flight place, I just say, hey, no, we're going to be still. And it rebels hard. The ego cannot stand it. That's the last thing the ego wants us to do, is to actually become peaceful, because then we're the master of it instead of it the master of us. But when you get to that stillness, peace comes. And if you learn to acclimate to stay there, love comes. And that's when we get initiated into the lover rite of passage. And lover rite of passage doesn't mean, oh, I'm this, ladies' man. It means I'm filled with the true love of God. And I start to see others and myself and life through the eyes of grace and love. And I start to experience everything as love. And from that place, you become very lucky. Because from a self-mastery place, you've got the integrity. From the love place, you've got the love I was talking about. Now comes what he called the magician, but I changed that to the alchemist. The Alchemist is a great book, by the way, too. But the alchemist is the one who takes, like Job, anything that comes your way and turns it into something beautiful. Give me lead, I'll turn it to gold. Give me coal, I'll turn it to diamonds. Give me lemons, I'll turn it to lemonade. Give me a divorce, I'll turn it into the greatest growth and healing for myself and others. Give me financial woes, like I filed bankruptcy in my late 20s. I learned a ton from that, right? Whatever I create for myself or that God brings me through, will I alchemize it into something that blesses my life and others? And so the third initiation, after you've integrated into the self-mastery and integrity of the warrior, the open heart and coherent brain-heart coherence of the lover, comes the alchemist or the magician who turns everything into good stuff. Whatever it is, it becomes something good.
Yeah.
You know, Elon Musk had a Tesla hit an I-beam on the freeway, and I'm not pro, anti anybody or anything, but the car burns down. And instead of him going, oh crap, we have negative press, he goes, well, give that guy a new Tesla and broadcast to the world that this is what we're doing to solve that from happening. And we're giving him a free Tesla. And that actually becomes marketing for him and free press that drives sales instead of taking them down. That's alchemy. Or my wife being in a bad place and coming at me in a bad way, I can either feed that and create worse stuff or master myself to go take space, meditate, breathe, connect with God, come back from the heart, and to alchemize it into a connection instead of a disconnection. So that's the alchemy piece. And then the fourth piece he called king. And I wrote this book called Atma Mastery because in Atma means higher self, the highest self. And I became fascinated because king could be like, I'm a tyrant. It could be, I'm an A-type personality macho man who's walking around saying, we're kings. Or I could say, change that word up to say Atma, because Atma means my highest self, the highest expression of who I could be as a divine sovereign man or being in this life. And so a lot of my work is centered around those things, but you can't access those three later ones if you don't first become highly proficient at the first stage of the peaceful warrior, the one who has gained dominion over his own mind and can generate stillness within, because that's where the magic begins.
I 100% agree. I think like one thing that my wife and I are doing is we're followers of Jesus, Christians, all of that. And there's a lot of Christians that have a lot going on in their mind. So we actually created 15 and 30-minute long meditations that are all like focused on specific things that they want to kind of meditate through. And it's all based on scripture. My wife's doing the meditation and guiding it and everything there. And I think that it's huge because like that is where everything else kind of stems from, because if your mind is going crazy, then you're going to be reactive, like you said in the beginning, and you're not going to be responding to stuff.
One
So I love
Christian
that you start with the stillness.
Yeah, one Christian could be traumatized, unhealed, and be a priest who's molesting boys. And another Christian, and his intent is good. He don't want to be doing that. He never wanted to become that. He's not trying to be that. He actually has a deep desire to do good, but he hasn't addressed the deeper things. So you apply what we've talked about here today. The next Christian could carry those same traumas, could have gone through those same really ugly, horrific things, done what they needed to do to apply meditation or healing or whatever it is that actually addresses those wounds inside. And now, instead of in a constant fight and battle with only willpower to rely on, which willpower always loses to this thing we're saying about Carl Jung. Until the unconscious is made conscious, it will rule your life and call it fate. So if they don't address that trauma, and the body keeps the score, the stuff stored in the subconscious in the body, willpower will lose. Like, I'm a guy who's done a lot of Ironman races and other hard things like that to help develop this mental mastery. If you haven't been training for an Ironman, Michael, go willpower your way through an Ironman today. I couldn't, even though I've done many. I have the skill set, I have the mindset, but I haven't been training for several years. So I can't willpower my way through an Ironman today. My body cannot do it. I would have to train for the next 12 months, again, to go do an Ironman. So willpower serves a great purpose, but it's can't deliver in and of itself. And so there has to be matching certain other ingredients involved. So take that same Christian that was molesting little boys, help him heal his stuff, or that other Christian that's maybe given Christianity a bad name because during the week he's yelling and abusing and toxic and unavailable, and then on Sunday he goes to church, he's actually giving people a bad taste, versus the other person sitting next to him as an absolute saint because of how they've navigated things. Yeah. But when we combine the two, if the person truly addresses those inner things and then applies Christian principles, the more we all do that, the more the world becomes a better place. And the whole concept of hurt people, that's what we all get to stop. Heal our own stuff. You know, Ram Dass is another guy that I've studied a lot of, and he says we work on ourselves so that we can lessen the suffering of others, right? So it's pretty simple down to that. Like, really handle our own inner demons so that everything we ever do, everything we ever say, creates more healing and brings, at the end of the day, brings as many others. You know, one of my favorite quotes, you could labor, if you should labor all the days of your life and save but one soul, great shall be thy joy. Now, I don't profess to be anyone that's in charge of saving souls or has any level of authority to claim that I'm here to do anything, but I can contribute in every way that I can, through teaching, through love, through presence, through holding space, through being an example. Anything and everything that I could do to help someone come, you know, leave the fear, the anger, the survival, and come into love and truth, then I can contribute towards bringing people, the souls, home to God. And at the end of the day, this body's going to come and go. All our material things are going to come and go. How rich will we be at that level by what we gave and what we left behind in the hearts of those we touched?
Love it, brother. No, I love that perspective for sure. For those that are interested in working with you, connecting with you, maybe joining the Warrior 44 challenge, like where's the best place for them to find you?
There's so I have a Facebook group called the Wolf Pack. On Facebook, I'm Christopher John Stubbs. And if you go to warrior44.com, you get an introduction to the challenge, and they can feel free. I've run all kinds of ads and funnels and all the things. I've simplified it down to relationships. Yep. Follow my stuff. If you want to connect or you've got questions, reach out. I'll serve you. I'm not going to try to sell you. If there's an awesome fit and it makes sense for us to work together, we will. Other than that, a lot of my resources are free. And but those are some good places to start.
Love it. And then, Christopher, if you could leave one final message to the men that are listening right now, what would it be?
Surrounding yourself with other men. I don't want to say high quality men, because it takes us into this realm of comparison. Other men that are committed, continuously committed to improving and growing into the greatest versions of themselves, because it's an ongoing thing. You know, I've been at it for 3 decades and there's still lots and lots of room for growth. But the more we surround ourselves with other men that are really, it matters a lot to them, and they put in the effort consistently to always improve. Yeah. There's certain things we cannot get lone wolfing it. There's a stage that's important of learning how to be self-sufficient on your own. There were rites of passage where a man had to go out in the wilderness and learn to survive on his own for a time. But no lone wolf in a wolf pack survives by themselves. No lion survives by themselves. The greatest beasts in this world, they don't survive solo. The more they can learn to do that, the better. But then the magic happens a lot for men. Women need women time. Men need men time. with good men doing good things for growth, not just go drink some beer and watch the sports thing, or go hunting or whatever. Like true mental, emotional, spiritual growth, even physical, doing hard things,
Yep.
getting out of your comfort zone over and over and over again until your comfort zone's so big that there's not a lot that can throw you off from your center or out of your heart.
Love it. Well, man, I appreciate you coming on here. I appreciate your time. I know you're not feeling the greatest, so I'm blessed to have you on here.
It's been a joy to connect and share this time with you. Thank you.
You're welcome. You have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.